Hi Frankie, Dr. Warren here. Looking at your course learning outcomes and listening to your video, which was very helpful, thank you. Um, I have a lot of markup on here uh, in your learning outcomes. Let's see, let me make sure that you're capturing it all. And here we go. Let's do it this way. So a lot of markup, and I don't want you to freak out by all the red because basically it's the same, your same objectives or outcomes, but tweaked a little bit. Some of the concepts I have outlined here on the front page. For example, when you have two similar learning objectives, you want to just roll them up into the highest blooms, because by accomplishing the highest blooms verb, you will have accomplished the lower one. So I wanted to give you that important point about learning objectives. Also, use the term instructional framework strategy since that's what you're teaching. So go ahead and you just use that. Be bold about that, okay? The more specific you can be about what you're teaching, the easier it is to develop those lessons, okay? So you talked about the how and the what, I think is what how you put it, or the how and the, well, anyway, your modules will, and your course learning outcomes, so your module learning outcomes, typically what we do in backwards design is develop the module learning outcomes, and then it's kind of like back and forth, and then the course learning outcomes really reflect those module learning outcomes. So you don't have separate skill sets. The course learning outcomes embed the module learning outcomes. So don't break those out into the how for one and the why for the other. The course learning outcomes are the how and why. The module learning outcomes are also the how and why, because the module learning outcomes, am I not right that you're addressing the three module learning outcomes, the objectives and feedback, the reinforcing and recognition, and the cooperative learning? And didn't we talk about having all three of those as three different modules? So each of those will have the same similar learning objectives, but they will be around these three different topics. And again, so it would be kind of around the what and the how. I think we talked about that. The what they are, what are they, define them, describe them, explain them. And then the how. How are you going to apply it in your classroom? How are you going to implement that and pilot it in the classroom? How are you going to build those lessons, those strategies? How are you going to, and then how are you going to evaluate it? So you test it. To evaluate it, you need to test it, you need to implement it, and then you need to reflect on it. So it's almost like four outcomes. What are they? Build lessons using them, test the lessons, apply them in the classroom, and then evaluate how that went. So I'm seeing four learning outcomes for each of your strategies, okay? And then your course learning outcomes would be those same four, but for the instructional strategies framework, that component one, whereas the other ones are the same four, but for each of these separate categories, okay? So again, it's what are they, define them, explain them, and then how are you, then adapt them. Adapt is a creativity blooms. Adapt them to lessons in the classroom. Pilot them, you're going to test them, and then evaluate how that went. Four objectives is kind of what I'm seeing, and I didn't see that fourth one until just now when I was talking you through it. So I would suggest that you kind of go that way, that route, and you don't have to get creative here. It's okay if you use the same language for all three components, and then for your course learning outcomes as well. It's okay. Okay, and the course learning outcomes again are going to be the instructional strategies framework, instructional framework strategies, and then the components are going to be for each of your three modules. Okay, hope that's helpful. Thank you. Have a great. You're probably fast asleep right now, and I should be fast asleep. It's been a long couple of days. See you soon. Bye. Okay, Frankie, Dr. Warren again, and I was looking at my the video I just created for you. And the one thing that I wasn't thinking about when I said 4 modules, or 4 types of objectives, was how long is your class going to be? Because yes, they can talk about explaining it, describing it, you know, each of the modules, and they can talk about how to design a lesson. But how long is your class? Because they're not going to be able to implement it unless there's some time involved to give them a chance to implement it. So you might want to consider having your lesson for the first 2 objectives for each module, but then in a month they come back, they reflect as they go, but in a month they come back and talk about how the implementation went. So you have the 2 lessons, they go out and implement it, and maybe even have discussion boards, reflection journals along the way over that month, and then they come back and do a final analysis on the implementation of those. That would be a much more powerful lesson, a much more powerful class, but it entails time, and I don't know if you have that, or if you want that to be part of your design. So if you don't want that to be part of your design, the implementation, then you just have the 3 lessons, which are, or the 3 objectives, which are, you know, define, describe, design lessons, so build lessons using those instructional framework strategies, and then along the way maybe they reflect, maybe there's 3 reflection journals, and then you write those questions around that reflection. The implementation phase would really make it powerful, but you need a month, and that kind of changes your whole design. I don't know if you want to do that, but it certainly is doable. Okay, so sorry for that addendum, but kind of thought a little bit about it as I was watching the video I just shared with you. Okay, so part 2. Thank you. Bye.